What's going on, everybody? Billy Glowacki here with Unchained Potential. Welcome back to Whiteboard Wednesday. Today the topic that we're going to discuss is cardio for weight loss. Now, first things first, I want to redefine what is commonly accepted as the term weight loss and what people really mean when they say, I want to lose weight or I'm on a weight loss plan. It's fat loss. Okay, that is actually what you are and what they are interested in. Take an individual who's 150 pounds and they want to lose weight. What they really want is to lose fat. They want a physique that looks leaner. They want a physique that has more lean muscle tissue and less fat tissue. So if that individual says, I want to lose 10 pounds and their only goal is to lose weight, they can restrict their calories and they can do hours of cardio each day, and then a month down the road or 3 weeks down the road they can hop on the scale, started at 150, now they're 140, and they can say, yeah, woohoo, I made my goal, I'm 140 pounds. Well, when we look at it, you lost a lot of tissue coming from muscle as well as a little bit of tissue coming from fat. So now you're at 140 pounds, but your physique, your body composition, or the ratio between your fat tissue and your muscle tissue, it hasn't changed really. So yes, you attained your goal of weight loss, but you didn't optimize your fat loss. So now you're left with the same physique. So first things first, let's start to redefine what we consider weight loss and make sure that people are trying to lose fat tissue, because that is what's going to lead to a better physique. It's going to lead to greater performance. It's going to reduce your risks for other injuries. It's going to reduce your risk for preventable disease as well. So now that that's out of the way, what I want to talk about are 4 modalities of cardio that are very commonly accepted. We have low intensity steady state cardio, LIS. You have moderate intensity steady state cardio, MIS. And then we have what I would consider interval training or circuit training. And then we have high intensity interval training, otherwise known as HIIT. I'm going to spend a brief second outlining what these things look like. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use 3 different categories or 3 different measuring sticks: recoverability, experience or skill set needed, and then caloric expenditure. We're going to use these 3 measuring sticks, and we're going to kind of rate where each one of these falls on these 3 groupings. So first things first, low intensity steady state cardio. What does that look like? Low intensity steady state cardio is going to be cardio that is exactly what it seems. Low intensity. Your heart rate is not going to get extremely elevated. The modality of what you do is not going to be very strenuous. It's going to look something like going for a walk. It might look like very leisurely riding your bike. There are going to be things, all of these things you're going to be able to do while carrying a full conversation. Okay? So now as we transition over here to moderate intensity steady state cardio, we've got low intensity, we're progressing to moderate intensity. So the characteristics of moderate intensity steady state cardio, heart rate is going to be elevated, roughly around 70-ish%, give or take, of your heart rate max. So things that you can do, similar modalities of training between these 2, but this one's just going to be done a little bit more intensely, okay? So again, rollerblading, bike riding, swimming, you could go for a jog, elliptical, stair mill. These are all things that you could do. We just want to keep the heart rate around 70%, and then we also, like I said, steady state refers to keeping the heart rate steady throughout. So if you were to look at the heart rate throughout the training session, you wouldn't want to see it being going up and down and up and down. That is not a characteristic of low intensity or moderate intensity steady state. And that's kind of one of the differentiating points between interval training and circuit training, and then low intensity and moderate intensity. The goal predominantly for interval training, circuit training, and then high intensity interval training is that we do want to see the heart rate go to peak levels and then come back down, and peak levels and come back down. So characteristics of interval training and circuit training. First things first, there is a difference between high intensity interval training and just regular interval training. most people that I see these days, when they say they're doing high intensity interval trainings, what they're really doing is either interval training or circuit training. They're getting their heart rate pretty darn high, and then they're letting it come down, but it's not going super high, and it's also not fully recovering. And that's going to be the predominant difference between interval training, circuit training, and high intensity interval training. So things that you could do for interval training or circuit training, you can run, you can buy the same modes that you can use for these, except for you're going to be doing them in intervals. So you might say, I'm going to sprint on my bike for 1 minute, and then I'm going to kind of recover for 1 minute. Or what you see a lot of is people doing that on either the stair mill, the elliptical, or the treadmill. They'll say, I'm going to run on the treadmill for a minute, and then I'm going to give myself 1 minute recovery. And then I'm going to sprint again for a minute, and then I'm going to recover. So that, just to be clear, is not high intensity interval training. So what is high intensity interval training? The biggest difference between high intensity interval training and circuit training or interval training is the fact that you're going to get your heart rate all the way up to 100%, or as close to it as you can, and you're going to do that in about 25 seconds. And then after you get your heart rate as close as you can to max for 25 seconds, you're going to get a full recovery. So instead of getting sub-maximally on the heart rate and then not quite letting it recover all the way, and those are the characteristics here, we do want your heart rate to get all the way up as high as it can, and then we want it to come down as low as possible in about 2 to 3 minutes. So about 25 to 30 seconds of work with about 2 to 3 minutes of rest. So your work to rest ratio is going to be different, as well as the intensity. Okay, so that's a brief introduction to what these 4 modalities may look like. And now what we're going to do is we're going to rate these, or we're going to place them on the scale of recoverability, the experience or the skill needed, and the caloric expenditure. Okay, so high and low recoverability for as you progress this way. Low level of skill or experience needed, up to high, and again high caloric expenditure versus low. Okay, so this is what things look like. If we're going to talk about in order, so this is being the far left and then progressing over to here, the recoverability, or essentially it is what it says, your ability to recover is going to be very high for low intensity steady state, right? You're not doing anything very intense, your heart rate's not getting that high, so your ability to recover from that is going to be very high, versus as we progress, moderate intensity heart rate's getting up a little bit, interval training, circuit training, all the way up to high intensity interval training, where you're working at highest intensity possible, your recoverability for that is going to be lower, okay? Next thing that we're going to talk about is experience, or the skill set needed. So if I'm brand new to working out and I'm trying to lose some fat and I'm ready to get started, the first thing that I do probably shouldn't be high intensity interval training, because you're going to need some experience, you're going to need some skill set. You're going to need to learn how to be stable in different positions. You're going to want to gain some muscle tissue, and you're going to want to practice some of the skills. Like maybe if you're going to do interval training or circuit training is going to be putting movements, exercises that you would normally do, and you're going to put them together into a circuit. So you would go from, you'd pick 5 or 6 movements, and you're going to try to do them pretty fast with short recovery in there. So you're going to need a little bit of experience on those basic movements before you can start putting them into a cardio routine. Versus low intensity, steady state cardio, you don't need a ton of experience. Most of us grew up, we learned how to ride a bike, or we hopefully know how to walk or run. And so the experience level that would be needed for you to take part in some low intensity steady state, it should be a smooth transition. You should jump right into low intensity, and then as you maybe lose a little bit of fat, and you start progressing, yeah, we can get into some moderate intensity. And as you get stronger, then we can start to implement some interval training or some circuit training. And then, yes, we can progress to high intensity intervals. Last thing that we want to evaluate these forms of cardio on is caloric expenditure. And so I want to make a point that these are, if these were all equated for 20 minutes, if you did 20 minutes of each, we're going to work, again, low intensity is going to have the lowest caloric expenditure, and then as you move from low intensity to moderate to intervals to high intensity intervals, this down here is going to have a very, very high caloric expenditure. Okay? So those are the three things that we're evaluating these 4 forms of cardio on. I hope it gives you a little bit of insight as to where you should start. I don't want to bring my bias into it and say, oh, I think everyone should be doing high intensity intervals. What I did is laid it out for you, and I want you guys to make the decision as to where you are. If you're if you don't have a lot of experience, then low intensity might be the best place to start. If you are already high stress, you're already eating very low calories, and you need to recover well, high intensity might not be the best bet. You might need to do, more moderate intensity. And then in regards to caloric expenditure, if you really want to burn a ton of calories and you want to get a big bang for your buck, you've only got 20 minutes. Got 20 minutes, what can I get done? You're probably not going to want to go with low intensity steady state, right? You'd want to go with high intensity intervals because that's going to give you your biggest bang for your buck. So my goal was not to bring my bias in there and tell you what to do. It was to lay these out and use a couple different means of rating each one, if you will, and then allow you to say, okay, here's where I am, here's what I think should be best, okay? So if you guys have questions and you're not sure, what you should be doing, how many times per week, what's the duration, what are some different forms, I didn't really even touch on what different forms of high intensity intervals would look like. Just quickly, prowler pushes, prowler pulls, rope slams, exercise bike sprints, car pushes, if you can get someone to steer your car while you push the car behind it, hill sprints, swim sprints. These will be forms of high intensity interval training. But if you have any other questions on what these may look like or what would work best for you, please feel free to reach out. You can comment in the comments section, send me a message or an email, and I'll do my best to get to you guys. So thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this is beneficial to you guys. And remember, you're after fat loss, not necessarily weight loss.